Never run out of battery again with the INIU portable charger, the slimmest 10,000 milliamp hour power bank that keeps your devices charged on the go. Stay powered up wherever you go. Click the link in the video description to shop now on Amazon.
Last kiss before she was dumped in shallow grave. How grim murder of student became one of UK's most baffling mysteries. On a summer evening in 1969, tragic university student Joan Leslie McMurray kissed her boyfriend goodbye and set off for her halls. The 21-year-old, who went mostly by her middle name, Leslie, walked alone along a stretch of the now disused Itchen Navigation Canal, but failed to make it home. Her body was found by a dogwalker 9 months after her disappearance, but her killer has never faced justice. It remains one of Britain's most baffling unsolved murders, nearly 56 years on. A friend of Leslie's, who did not want to be named, told The Sun, "We would be delighted if the person who carried out this atrocity were finally identified and prosecuted." Leslie, a third-year physiology and biochemistry undergraduate at Southampton University, had parted with boyfriend Charlie Gore in Shawford on June 2. She then headed for her halls at Montefiore House in the city's Swaithling area, some 7 miles away. Leslie had reportedly told him she wanted to walk along the water's edge. Charles is not a suspect in the case. He has since died. Her remains were eventually found on March 23, the following year, in a shallow grave in a field off a railway embankment in Allington Lane, in the neighboring village of Fair Oak, near Eastleigh. Investigators had suggested the spot Leslie's remains were found was just 2.5 miles from where she was last seen by Charles, according to a report in the Birmingham Daily Post the day after the discovery. Cops also found her cardigan, bra, and a stocking, the article added. A murder room was set up at Eastleigh Police Station, where Chief Detective Superintendent Cyril Holdaway told the press, "We are looking for a sex maniac." He added the murder probe was likely to be massive. Pathologist Dr. Peter Puller examined the remains at Winchester, but a cause of death could not be determined due to severe decomposition. The investigation would then frustratingly stall for decades, and it wasn't until 1999 that Malcolm Fletcher was arrested on suspicion of murder. Fletcher had already been convicted of the 1973 manslaughter of his 6-year-old niece Tracy Watts, and had been committed to Rampton Psychiatric Hospital in Nottinghamshire. He would later be convicted of multiple other offenses and is currently in prison. The then 51-year-old had been due to stand trial for Leslie's murder at Nottingham Crown Court. But in November 2000, the Crown Prosecution Service announced there was insufficient evidence and the charges were dropped. A statement said, "It is the duty of the CPS to ensure that the defendant gets a fair trial. We have concluded that difficulties faced by the prosecution cannot be overcome. The case should not be pursued." Hampshire Police Det Supt David Haverley, who led the reopened murder inquiry, said at the time, "We have exhausted all lines of inquiry, and there is no longer an active investigation." A tree was planted in M.S. McMurray's memory in February 2001, outside the university's student union, in a ceremony organized by course friends, with attendees including her 2 younger sisters, Fran and Elizabeth. A university spokesperson confirmed to The Sun that the plaque and tree are still there. But apart from that, the case, one of Hampshire Constabulary's only unsolved murders, remains largely forgotten. Leslie was one of 3 sisters from Wallington, now part of Sutton, South London. Her dad, Robert McMurray, was a senior engineer for the Ministry of Public Building and Works. While studying, she would often return to her hometown, then situated in Surrey, to stay with an aunt when her parents moved to Bahrain in the Middle East. Prior to dating Charles, she had been in a year-long relationship with Gerald Howarth, who would go on to become MP for Cannock and Burntwood, and then Aldershot, as well as Minister for International Security Strategy for the Ministry of Defence from 2010 to 2012. He was knighted in 2012 and stood down as an MP prior to the 2017 general election. Sir Gerald, 77, also attended the tree planting in 2001. Describing Leslie, he previously told the Daily Telegraph, "She was an absolutely smashing girl, quiet, unassuming, lovely to look at, and tremendous fun. To have her life snatched away like that, just as she was about to launch herself in the world, was a terrible tragedy. They had met at university, where Gerald was studying English, at a student ball, and remained friends after splitting up. Leslie was also friends with the former politician's now wife Lizzie, who he met through the Young Conservatives. After the Fletcher trial collapsed, Sir Gerald said at the time, "I am angry and disappointed. I am sure that all Leslie's family and friends will be, too." June 2, 1969. Southampton University student Joan Leslie McMurray left her boyfriend in Shawford to walk alone along a stretch of Itchen Navigation Canal. She never made it to her student accommodation at Montefiore House in the city's Swaithling area. March 23, 1970. Her remains would eventually be found in a shallow grave in a field off a railway embankment in Allington Lane, in the neighboring village of Fair Oak, near Eastleigh. Her remains were examined at Winchester, but a cause of death could not be determined due to severe decomposition. 1999. The investigation would then frustratingly stall for decades, and it wasn't until 1999 that Malcolm Fletcher was arrested on suspicion of M.S. McMurray's murder. Fletcher had already been convicted of the 1973 manslaughter of his 6-year-old niece Tracy Watts, and had been committed to Rampton Psychiatric Hospital in Nottinghamshire. He would later be convicted of multiple other offenses and is currently in prison. The then 51-year-old had been due to stand trial for M.S. McMurray's murder at Nottingham Crown Court. November 2000. In November 2000, the Crown Prosecution Service announced there was insufficient evidence against Fletcher, and the charges were dropped. February 2001. A tree was planted in M.S. McMurray's memory in February 2001 outside Southampton University's Student Union in a ceremony organized by Course Friends, with attendees including her 2 younger sisters, Fran and Elizabeth, and ex-boyfriend, and former MP Sir Gerald Haworth. While committed at Rampton, Fletcher met and married Anne Barrett, who was serving a sentence for child murder. Their liaison is understood to have resulted in a woman going to police with fresh information in 1996, reported The Telegraph. 4 specimen charges were brought against Fletcher of indecent assault on the informant when she was 11 during the 1970s, which he admitted at Nottingham Crown Court in November 2000. At the time, M.S. McMurray's murder trial was also due to take place. News of those allegations led to police receiving information about Leslie's death and reopening her murder case in 1999. It was hoped the advance in forensic medicine would help in the inquiry, with hairs found near Leslie's remains analyzed for possible DNA blueprint. In October later that year, detectives executed search warrants at 2 addresses in Eastleigh and Nottinghamshire, the Southern Daily Echo reported. Mr. Justice Goldring placed Fletcher on the sex offenders register for life. He told Fletcher, "It is plain to me that you continue to be a grave danger to women." Sir Gerald said, "The fact that the admissions of what he did to the 11-year-old had to be dragged out of him after so long shows his complete lack of remorse. Nobody can have sympathy for a man like that." A spokesperson for Hampshire Police told The Sun, "In respect of this case, I am able to inform you that this is a matter that remains unresolved. It is not currently under active investigation, but is subject to periodic review by the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary Serious Crime Review Team. As such, we would not seek to make any further comment upon the case at the moment. Do you know more? Email Ryan Merrifield at Thesson, Co. UK.